Hey friends, welcome to Creative Place Podcast. Today I'm joined by my friend and colleague, Tessa Jennings, client advocate and founder of Spatial HQ, a commercial project management firm. Tessa, thank you so much for coming today. I'm excited to have you on the podcast finally. We've been talking about this for a long time, so we are overdue. So this is fun, and we're doing it in the studio at Create. I haven't done one here yet, which is exciting. I'm kind of traveling around and catching people where they are, but here we are. So this is great. And I'm so glad you're here.
I'm honored to be here. I've been really excited to see you start this podcast, and you've had some really great guests. So
It's been fun.
I feel extremely blessed to be here, and I'm happy to share our story and share my story.
Talk to me just a little bit personally and professionally. Who are you? What makes you tick? And just give me a little background.
So I'm a builder, I'm a creator, and I'm a problem solver.
Yeah.
And that's on the personal level as well as a professional level. So even when, as a young kid, I was always building forts and putting things together and helping my mom with things and problem solving as a young girl. I love math and science, and that's all about problem solving and doing research. And so I think a lot of the decisions that I've made in my career and a lot of the movement that I've made in my career has been based on those three characteristics that I carry.
Yeah, that makes total sense.
You know, I started in architecture and then moved into construction, and now I'm working in commercial real estate as an owner's representative or an owner's project manager.
Yeah.
So, you know, I've kind of been able to express all of those different characteristics in each role that I've carried, and they all build upon each other.
I love that. Do you think that's one of the things that people don't know about you is that you actually started in architecture?
I think so. I mean,
Yeah.
I think they quickly find out, especially if they have me on a project, because I really dig deep into the design and the concept and function and flow with my client and making sure that their needs are being met in the layout of a space or the experience of a space. So a lot of times people see me really digging deep into that and they're like, what are you doing? Who are you? You know, and so then I'll let them know.
You're not just a construction manager, are you? I think I've seen that conversation happen with you. And I think that someone like you and others that I know that are in your role, those that have the architecture background, it's more powerful. And I think it is because you have that understanding of that whole other side of the project and the process, right? You understand the process before it hits the construction site, and you understand what it takes all the way back to programming. And so I think your programming and your discovery phase with clients is a little more in-depth than some that maybe just have a construction or just a general PM background.
And it's funny that you mentioned that because, you know, one thing about my process and the process that we have at Spatial is we really do get personal and we really are high touch, and we have our own discovery and programming phase once we're onboarding a client, even before we get into due diligence and planning and then moving through design. So at the beginning, having that discovery phase with our client is so critical in moving into the next phases, whether it be design or construction, because then I can make sure that whatever we're developing and building and planning aligns with their culture, their goals, and their objectives.
Right. That's a very holistic approach.
Right.
So in your own words, what's the role of a commercial real estate advisor, a project manager? You know, there's a couple names for it.
Right.
And what do leaders often misunderstand about you and what you actually do?
So as an owner's project manager or an owner's representative, we act as independent advocates and advisors for our owners, providing guidance, strategy, and process for their commercial real estate projects.
Right.
And then I would say above process and frameworks, we make sure that the decisions that are being made from end to end, concept to operations turnover, align with our clients' goals, objectives that they set up at the beginning during that discovery phase. The bare minimum, you're going to make sure that their schedule, the budget is on track.
Yeah.
And then if you go above and beyond process, you want to make sure at the end of that project that that project has the life to live on with that client and you're meeting their expectations from a function and flow perspective as well.
I love that. You know, we as a design team, we do a lot of that, but there's only so much. First of all, there's only so much that they're going to hire us and pay us to do.
Right.
Second of all, we are not the experts in everything. And
Oh,
I
and
think,
that touches on your second question, right? What do people misunderstand? And,
yes,
a lot of times clients are like, well, my design team has project management
yes,
or my construction team has project management. But, there are so many disciplines on a commercial real estate project. And really, all of those disciplines have project management, whether it be design, construction, IT, food service,
yeah,
you name it, furniture, they all have a project manager on their team for that discipline.
right,
But as an owner's PM, we are really collectively looking at that project and managing holistically full life cycle for the client, making sure that each discipline is meeting those goals and expectations. Every discipline has their deliverable that they're most concerned about,
right,
and so design is going to be like their project manager is focused on delivering the design. And then there's going to be things that pop up that you need from the client, information that you need from the client, processes or milestones that the client will need to meet to allow you to keep on your design schedule.
yes,
And typically the design team doesn't step out of their own scope and say, okay, let me manage all the milestones that you need to hit so that we can keep moving in design, whether that be funding or contracts or presenting information to the board for approval, whatever, you name it,
I can probably speak for a lot of the other disciplines. I enjoy having a good owner's rep or
Mhm.
a project manager as part of the team. And not only is that somebody that can kind of keep everybody accountable, but it's nice to have a third party sometimes that they're an advocate for us and the client. It can be a
Absolutely.
liaison, you can be an intermediary to be in
Catalyst
between, a
too, if
catalyst
things are
too.
stuck, we kind of can
That,
push
oh,
things
yes.
along.
And we deal with that a lot. That's one of the biggest hiccups, right? Is getting clients to make decisions and move on. And that was actually part of the next question is talking about the business risks when companies wait too long or try to go it alone. And then also an extension of what you're talking about, how do you get a leader to move from being overwhelmed to making decisions and finding clarity? What does that process look like for you?
Yeah, I mean, I think, going back a little bit, one of our main roles is to act as a single point of contact
Yes.
and allow the owner not to endure that stress and that sense of being overwhelmed with the process and with all of the decisions and the details.
Right.
So we come in, take that role for them, and then we only tag them for critical items. And then behind the scenes, it's seamless and easy for them, but behind the scenes, we are handling all of that communication, all of that coordination, and all of that drive
Right.
to not only get decisions from the client, but also get deliverables from our consultants, the design team, and any of the other project team that's involved.
Yeah.
And it's hard, some clients buy into the process and they really let you be a true advisor and a true consultant. You have some clients who may be very hands-on, want to be very involved. I would say deter the process, but that's a part of the role as well, is understanding that client, understanding how they work, really getting to know them. It's very personal, very high touch. You adjust how you manage and facilitate that project based on that client because it can be confusing.
Yeah.
They're getting communication from multiple people on a project. So I adjust myself, my team adjusts themselves based on what our client needs and what their personality and characteristics are.
It is actually refreshing to have a PM on board that understands the process and that can actually help, like you're saying, can help facilitate the decisions because it can get rather difficult to get clients to make decisions a lot of time. It's back to that educating piece of it too, isn't it?
Absolutely.
It's saying,
Huge. Education
client, you
is
need to
huge.
make this decision because, but here also is why. And you can explain that to them, knowing them and getting to know their process, how they receive information, right? And making sure
Absolutely.
you understand that and can take that almost the hodgepodge of information that's coming from all the consultants and feed it to them in such a way that they can digest it and make those decisions. Because that's got to be one of the hardest things to get them to do sometimes is just to come from that space of overwhelm and be able to say, okay, I understand what you're asking me.
Well, and
Here's what I decided.
that's such a good point because I have many meetings on a project, but I have my status call with my client and I'll invite the leadership representative of the important disciplines to that call.
Yes.
And, we'll give them updates and we'll walk through the process with them where we are. And a lot of times I find myself telling the team, like, hey, can you explain that in more detail so that they understand clearly what you're saying? Or I'll ask my client, do you understand that? Does that make sense to you? I'll always
Yeah.
take a pause because a lot of times we do this every day and
Yeah.
we sometimes assume that everybody knows what we're talking about. But I know I can look at my client or I know their history and I know their knowledge of real estate or design or the process.
Right.
And I can stop and be like, hey, wait, can you, explain that a little bit further? Can you go into more detail on this part? Just helping my client have that additional time and information to help them understand.
So you and I both believe that great projects, of course, are built by great teams. What does assembling the right team look like to you? What does that star team look like?
Yeah, I mean, this will sound weird, but when I hear team, I hear tribe. And I always pride myself on building a really good tribe to support me. And that's not only in life, but that's in my professional career as well. So starting initially, and this is even before I have a client, I am constantly building my tribe in the industry and I try to make sure that I have a reservoir of resources that I can offer any type of client that comes to me.
Yeah.
So I think the first step is just really having really solid relationships in the market and in the industry. And that's not only locally, that's nationally, because I
Right.
work nationally as well. And then I think the second phase of that is understanding your client, right? What's the culture? What are their goals? What are their objectives? And it really becomes a matchmaking exercise.
Yeah.
Who is the right fit for this client? Because there's a ton of brilliant consultants and resources that I have, but not every designer or GC is going to be the right fit for every client because I
Agreed.
work with Fortune 100 clients and then I have nonprofits and then I have faith-based clients. And so it's really taking a look at that tribe that you have that you've built with people that you trust and that are super smart and innovative and then fitting them with the client based on who they are and what their goals are.
Yeah, that's a great way to look at it. I like the tribe.
Yes,
That's a good analogy for that. Team. It's
absolutely.
not just a team, right? It is a tribe. You surround each other,
Well,
you're
for
not.
me, it is. I really encourage my clients to look at it that way as well. Look at partnerships
Yeah.
as opposed to the lowest cost, right?
Agreed.
We'll hear a lot of times who's the cheapest, who's the fastest, who's going to get us there. And we can all meet your goals. Let's find the best partner
Yes.
who's going to work with you, who's going to follow through, who's going to be dedicated, who's going to communicate, who's going to be creative, problem solving, and,
Yes, that's important.
whenever challenges come up. So it's all about having the best partnership and the best tribe, the best team, as opposed to who's going to do it cheapest and fastest.
Yeah, and you're going to pay for what you get.
You
You're
will.
going to get what you pay for.
And,
Right.
the best designers, the best partners can do it cheap and fast too.
Yes.
You know what I mean? If
Yeah.
that's the goal,
Yeah.
the overarching goal. But most of my clients, that's not the overarching goal. If you really dig deep and you really get through that discovery process, it might be a priority. But if there's something underneath that, that's, more important for the long term,
Yeah.
I try to focus on that.
Well, and I appreciate that you're helping them to see that and helping them to evaluate it because that's just like us. Not always the cheapest, but there's always a way to scale it. Right?
Absolutely.
So there's always a way, like you said, I mean,
That's
the
that
fees,
creative,
yes,
right?
the fees go with the effort and with the value of what you're providing. So a lot of times we find that we just need to have a conversation about expectations. Perhaps our expectation for the project or the kind of service level that we would normally give has this price tag on it. But if you're saying, no, we want your creativity, we need this and that, but maybe they don't need the full Monty, if you will, right,
Right.
of the services, then let's scale it. Let's talk about that. And I
Absolutely.
think that's the part about you creating that tribe of people that you can go back to and have that conversation.
Absolutely.
And not just make that decision off the cuff. We just did an RFP recently. you can't win them all. And they came back and they said, we were hired, and they went on to someone else. And I thought, that's fine. But I also appreciate when somebody would come back and say, let's talk about it for a hot minute before we just make the decision, And so in follow-up call, we realized that we were not aligned with the expectations. So the reality is we were not necessarily the highest, because in conversation, we realized that we had included more than what they really needed out of it. And just through communication and just through a standard RFP or proposal, that didn't come through. And so I love the way that you're creating this reservoir, you're standing and having the ability to have that conversation that helps the client too.
I'll elaborate on that, and I'll actually give an example, right? So I just went through an RFP, and there were 5 architects on that one, and they were all over the place, right? So if my client didn't have an advisor, they just would have looked at that, taken the lowest number, and ran with it.
Right.
So I spent a week qualifying all of those RFP responses. And what that means is that you're calling everybody and having a conversation. Now, you're not sharing numbers or telling them details, but you're going, hey, this is where you are. These are the areas that you were high in. This is scary low. And having that conversation and really trying to understand, like, what did they mean when they put this note in there? Did they include this? Did they leave this out?
Right.
Really doing a deep dive, which a client on their own may not know those questions to ask or that process to vet all of those proposals. So ultimately, by the end of that qualification, most of those numbers became more level. Then we chose our lowest number. Well, it actually wasn't the lowest number. It was the second lowest, because we had interviews, and it was like, I have this whole scorecard method, but they scored really high. And so, the lowest number was low, but this guy is not that much higher, and they are coming with a whole different level of services.
And there may have been some connection too, right?
Right.
You're going to be spending a lot of time with these people, with these teams. And I'm glad you're bringing that up, because I think that's a big piece of the RFP process too. And that RFP that I talked about, we did not interview.
But I mean, interviews, I push for them because they are a game changer.
Agreed.
Especially, I talked about matchmaking. It's about chemistry.
Yeah.
And when that client starts asking questions and the design team is responding, and the way that they respond, how they communicate together. I mean, those are things that are on my scorecard. Chemistry is like something that we
super
grade.
Important. This is a very personal thing. Even a corporate project is very personal.
That particular project is going to be, we're going to be in the trenches for 3.5 years.
There you go. You
so
better like who you're in the trenches with.
You want to like who you're in the trenches with, and you want to feel good about the decision that you made, and you want to feel like it was thorough and you really thought about it, and you feel confident with it.
I completely agree. Those interviews are super important. And on projects that we don't have the benefit of having a PM or somebody that's leading the charge, we're the ones that wind up leading the client through bringing on the GC and that process. And we're the same way as you. Interview a few of them.
Absolutely.
They can all be open book at the end of the day. Understand what their overhead and profit is, understand, what those basic fees are, and then love them, because they are going to be the ones that are on this project for, could be the next year or so, building this out for you. And if you don't even like the team that you're dealing with, then it's going to be a long road.
Long road. It can get done, but it's painful.
It will be very painful. I agree.
Maybe a little bit of trauma in there.
Don't want trauma. We're all about eliminating the trauma. Let us just help you, guide you through that. Like you said, there's so much talent out there, but it is absolutely chemistry.
Absolutely.
And it's all of the factors. And you have to be on the same page with that. I mean, you should enjoy the process. It should be a little bit of fun. That's what we promote. It should be a little fun.
But that's why your team is so important. It is.
Exactly. So we talked about designing the perfect team and what qualities you want represented.
I did really touch on it. Creative, innovative, dedicated. I think altruism is really important to me. I mean, it might not be important to everyone else, but to me, it's something that I look for in the partners that I bring to the table. I want them to be kind. I want them to have a care for humans.
That's very underrated. Yes.
Promote like human-centric, intentional spaces and development. And I think you have to have a team that has that at the top of mind too.
Yeah,
So,
I agree. We are creating spaces for people, are we
mhm,
not? So can we
absolutely.
understand who the people are and want to give them a space that makes them thrive, right?
Right.
So is there a moment in your career where you felt this is exactly the kind of work I want to do? Like after we've just talked about all these tribes and parts and pieces, like when did you say, yeah,
Uh,
this is what I enjoy assembling and facilitating on the regular?
oh, you know what? I will describe it more like an addiction, right?
And to
It's
be fair, this
a
was not on the list we talked about.
no,
I'm
it's
just
like
throwing you into this.
it's a labor of love, right?
Yeah.
There hasn't been a moment where I'm like, yes, this is what I want to do forever. No, I mean, there is a moment at the end of a project when that final clean is done and the space is sparkling and it's beautiful and like all the work and effort that you put into it just came together. And not all project is, big and sexy.
No.
But still there's that moment when at final clean where you're like, oh, perfect. It's done. And your client's going to love it. And that's how I feel because
Yeah.
I put a lot of effort into it. Sometimes I'm cleaning myself. But then
We know what that
also
feels like.
the day that of activation, right? Like
Yes.
when people are in the space and using it and they're just flowing and humming. And I love that. That is a feeling that I get addicted to.
Yeah.
So
It's a nice little high,
it
isn't it? And
is.
it's when the client says, oh, this is better than what I ever imagined, or, these
Right.
comments like that, or it's exactly what I thought it would be. If we're meeting or exceeding that expectation, like that's, I think, the ultimate feeling. And I love clients that want to do a big reveal for their people. And when they're promoting the space that you design, that you manage, that you helped to bring to fruition, and they're just in there gushing over it, that, yeah, that's it. That's why
Yeah,
we do this,
it
right?
is.
That is the
Those are the
ultimate
moments.
compliment. Yes.
Yeah. And they keep you going because
Yeah.
you may not have that moment, but every 4 or 5 years, but
And they're not all sexy and glamorous. No,
right.
I mean,
Yeah.
but even some of the most basic projects, it is so fulfilling when the client, you can actually appreciate it. And sometimes it's hard because, as you know, you're in the throes of the project, and towards the end of it, you are all sick of each other. Everybody is tired. Get through that. And then that is, I think, where the critical mass of having that tribe
Oh,
that
yes.
you set up in the beginning, that was kind, that was creative, that was
And
patient,
you
and that
problem
was
solve and you
smart.
show up
And
for each other.
yes, and
You
it's,
show
you
up.
get in that sandbox and you do it, and it's about solving the problems before they go before the client, right? And you and I have been in this sandbox before together on projects.
Yes.
And I love it because when we have partners and we have this tribe that we've created, and everybody can jump in and solve it as much as you can before it goes in front of the client, then we're
Absolutely.
protecting them. We're protecting them from extra stress, from the things they just don't need to know. We're doing our job
Exactly.
when they don't know all of these weird little things that go on behind the scenes. I'm not saying we're making change orders. And obviously, there's a process for that when
Hmm.
it comes to money, but there's so many things that the client just needs to be shielded from. That
Absolutely.
is just the messy,
Absolutely.
in the moment stuff that we just all come together like on site or in a meeting. And that's what it's all about. It's about solving those problems. And the more that we can do that together on behalf of the client without them having to stress about it, the better.
And that's why our expertise shows up the most
Yeah.
because we do this day in and day out. And so we've seen this over and over again. And so something small to us may seem like a huge deal to our client.
Yes.
And it may take them into the stratosphere, of stress, emotion, reaction.
Yes.
And so if I can eliminate as much of that as possible, because I know it's not a big deal,
Yeah. It's not.
and I can pull them back and calm them down. But the less I have to do that, the more
Yes.
efficient we can be with
Let's
everything
save
else.
those moments for the moments that we can't help. The
Oh,
moments where
yeah.
we have to go before them and say the
Patience.
tough conversation.
Absolutely.
So that's what it's all about, is reserving the energy for that. So what does creating a place to thrive mean to you when you think about the process, not just the final space? What does that look like to you?
Yeah, I mean, to me, it goes back to experience, right? How is the end user experiencing this space?
Right.
And that is above and beyond the process. It is about the process, but it goes back to that initial discovery, right? And really understanding the client, understanding how they work
Yeah.
or how they do business, whatever it may be, because it might be an industrial site, and really thinking about the life cycle of real estate. Because even after we're gone,
Yes.
they're living in that space, they're experiencing that space, and operationally, it has to work for them and it
Yeah.
has to be exceptional because they went through this big change. They invested all of this time and money to really improve their business.
Yeah. We have to make sure that they are on board with all the decisions that were made. We
Absolutely.
are paying attention to that. I think that's another thing that kind of sets us apart is doing that deep dive, the discovery and the programming. And we both go probably farther than some people do on that. And I think it's super important. And I think it's funny. And people think, well, why do you need to know all of that? You're just a designer, you're just an architect, just design my space, you know? And we say, yeah, if I don't know what you do, what your end game is, what your goals are, what you do on the daily, you know, what does your day-to-day process look like? What do your interactions look like? There's so much more to understand about the business. And then that leads to understanding the culture and all of the other things that, you know, that
Absolutely.
are top of mind to not only the leadership, but also the people that are in the space day to day. I love that part of it. And that does then translate into whether or not they thrive in the space, right? So they're only going to thrive if we've paid attention to everything that they told us or didn't tell us because we observe a lot, right? We see
Absolutely.
a lot of what they don't tell us informs a lot of that. And then it's setting them up with a space that's also going to thrive with them, right? So we can't just drop them off and now they don't have sustainable materials or it's a pain in the butt to change that light bulb and, you know, just all of the little
Absolutely.
things, right?
Well, and I think a benefit for firms like yours and mine, I mean, you're larger than my firm, but we're boutique, right?
Yes.
And as founders, we are highly involved in our projects.
Yes, absolutely.
So my client is going to see me from the beginning of the project all the way to the end. I'm going to be on site
Yeah.
when they move in. I'm going to be on site the first week that they move in.
Yeah.
And that's something that I will continue as I grow and as I expand. But I think it's really important. And it may not be me, but I think whoever is starting that process and building that relationship, they follow it through from beginning to end. And I still plan to be involved because it's always important to have a few individuals involved that know what's going on so that if anything happens, someone can step in.
Absolutely. And yeah, and yes, and as you grow, it won't just be you, you know, it'll be your partners, it'll be your fellow leadership and just like we are. I mean, Angela and I, you know, we do like to stay in the project. And even if we're kind of tapping in and out together, that's an important piece of it. And like you said, that sets us apart. And that's why we stay small, we stay boutique, because that is something that's important, I think, to the client. And even if they don't see our faces every day or we're not the ones sending them the emails and things like that, they know that we're in the background, right? They know that we're still keeping tabs on it. We're still communicating with the team. How's the client doing? Checking in. And I think that is really important, at least for us. And I know that you agree with that. Just one of the things I feel like that set us apart when clients can go to the bigger firms and they can get that experience and if that's what they choose. That's awesome.
It's all about matchmaking,
that's
right?
exactly
Whatever
right. Is the
fits
matchmaking.
what your needs are.
But if you want to get in the nitty gritties with us, it becomes more of a personal relationship, then we're your people, right?
Right.
So based on what you're seeing in our market, what kind of things should leaders be preparing for right now as we're talking about creating them spaces to thrive and what are we looking at right now that you're seeing kind of top of mind? And that could be regional, national too. Are there some things that you've really been seeing are hot buttons for leaders?
I think for Tampa, we are still growing, so on that front, there's a big push for like housing, multifamily. So I'm seeing that. And I think our region is really putting policies in place to help facilitate that. I also feel that industrial has taken a little bit of a shift. So what I've started to see are those like small box flex industrial spaces over the large big box industrial. And it seems that local, more strategic distribution facilities are in right now, or there's a demand for that right now. Obviously, nationally and also locally, hybrid work is forcing corporate real estate to transition.
I agree. We're seeing a lot of that.
Yeah, I think smaller footprint, more flexible lease terms, also some AI integration, when it comes to space planning as well as building systems, saving energy and automated systems. A lot of property owners are implementing, but those are mostly the things that I've been seeing lately, but it's an odd time right now. So there's a lot of change. There's a lot of uncertainty in the market. I'm curious at the direction that office will take.
Me too.
I'm also excited about it. I think tenants may be going smaller, but they're also getting more creative and building out more dynamic spaces, and that attracts talent, attracts people. I've also seen, as far as locations, obviously urban center, urban core is like super popular, but I also have seen companies looking in the suburban area for co-working and trying to put office buildings out there so that people aren't traveling as much.
Right. It's creating little hubs out
Yes,
there. We see that more and more. Right?
Yeah. And then that was another thing, like hub and spoke type of spaces where it's a satellite office that's closer to their core team, not a huge build out, but something close that they can go to, they can collaborate.
Yeah.
So those are the types of things that I'm seeing.
We're seeing a lot of that too. And basically leadership is just trying to get a little bit more creative in every way, right?
Absolutely.
Because they're concerned about these long-term leases that they just can't commit to anymore. And how do we keep the people engaged? How do we keep people coming in? What does that dynamic look like?
Absolutely.
And there is a lot more of the smaller multiple offices, and we're seeing that more and more. And I mean, we had a meeting this morning with a client, they're looking at, 4,000 square feet, but they're an engineering firm. So the reality is they're going to wind up with a bunch of hubs throughout the different counties, because why would they have their survey team come back and check in every day just 2 counties away, basically?
It just
where
doesn't
they can
make sense.
just kind of get centered in that, and that's where they're living, that's where they're doing their work, and then they all come in every once in a while, the main office, and they connect. And so I think that's becoming a big piece of what's going to continue to happen. And
I agree.
And these mixed use spaces, that's what the whole idea is, right? Is you have your residential, restaurants, retail, you have everything that's kind of in this core, and they try to keep you there,
Oh, yeah.
so that makes sense. You have a little hub office there,
Yeah.
and then you're really offering your employees some great amenities without having to build out this giant space anymore, right?
Yes.
So let's just touch on some more personal things now.
Okay.
You and I have both built our careers here in leadership heavy, often male dominated rooms. We're just going to say it. But what advice do you have for women navigating these environments with confidence and maybe a little backbone? I mean, this is not a feminist conversation. This is reality.
Absolutely.
Particularly, I see younger gals coming up in the industry, and it's a little overwhelming. And I remember being there years ago, and you have too. And so what kind of advice do you have for these young women getting into project management and construction and architecture and these very high demanding roles?
I would say a lot of it is, voice and posture, because I think it's important for women, especially women, to speak with authority. I think it's important for anyone to speak with authority. And with authority, I mean confidence.
Right.
And I think you do that by being prepared.
Yes.
And being knowledgeable. But you are valued. You have expertise. And so don't forget that. And I think a lot of women forget that. You're here for a reason. You're at the table for a reason. So you know what you're doing. Come prepared. Speak with authority and confidence and show up. I think that's the first step, because even with some of my clients that have women on their teams, I will pull the women in. Because they're quiet and they're like, I'm just here to listen. And I'm like, no, you're not. You're here for a reason. Your voice matters.
The reason why you were invited to the table.
Right. And then I think it's important to have boundaries with my clients, with my project team. So I am very clear about setting expectations and protocols at the very beginning, up front, so that everyone knows what's expected. And
what's an example of that? Some protocols that you like to set at the beginning.
I would say communication protocol, like who's supposed to communicate with who and when, because that keeps, as a single point of contact, it's important for them to send things to me, and then I send things to my client.
Right.
And that keeps people from undermining me,
Mm-hmm.
and it keeps things in control.
Right. Right.
And same for my client. Please come through me.
You're paying me for a reason.
Yeah,
Testing
no,
me for a reason, right?
because, my client will reach out direct, and then my team's like, what are we doing? That's not what you said.
Yeah.
The team knows not to act unless it's coming from the client, that's fine. But like, they always check with me
Yeah.
and say, hey, this doesn't sound right. This is what they're asking. Are we sure we're moving forward on this? So, just always a checks and balance in place.
I think that's important for any team. I don't care what the mix is,
Mhm.
or on the job site. I feel like there's a few things I would probably tell some younger women, particularly on a job site. Can we dress like the job site? And
Oh,
then
yes.
you might get a little bit more respect on a job
Oh,
site.
absolutely.
And I'm not saying that you shouldn't anyway, but there are, like you said, there are certain protocols. There's a professionalism I think that needs to come through, and own what you know. I mean, own your expertise.
Absolutely.
And communicate it, right?
Right, exactly. And I'll say identifying your allies, right? Tribe.
Yeah.
So early in my career, I would say, especially when I was in construction, I didn't know anything because I went to school for design. And this is one thing I was going to say earlier, why it's so helpful to have been on both sides, because design is doing design stuff and they'll figure it out. If it doesn't work, we'll figure it out in the field. And then construction is like, what is this? This doesn't make sense. And so it's always good to be able to connect the dots. But when I was early days in my career, I would always make really good friends with my superintendent.
Mhm.
And I could go to my superintendent and ask very dumb questions. And I would go and sit on site with my superintendent all day long, and I would work on site, and I would watch what they were doing, and I would ask dumb questions, and I would research things. And unfortunately, we did not have AI to look up everything back then.
You always got to double check it. Anyway.
You do have to double check it. But I think allies are super important.
Yes.
I'm a part of a bunch of different commercial real estate organizations. And before I started my own firm, when I didn't feel comfortable going to my direct report, or I definitely didn't feel comfortable with my project team because I felt like I had to keep this position or optics of authority, I would always go to my tribe, right?
Yeah.
The people that I connected with in these organizations. And it's important to identify who your allies are, build your tribe. So that's your superpower.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, because you don't know everything.
No,
but you can build a tribe that knows everything.
That's a good point. You don't know everything.
Right.
So don't get caught trying to pretend that you know everything. Because I
Absolutely
think
not.
that is one really fast way to lose all credibility
Oh, yes.
of any kind. I would rather say, well, let me get the answer for you on that and get back to you. That is more powerful than fudging your way through something.
Leading with integrity is so important. Your reputation follows you.
Absolutely.
I mean, I run into people. I started in the DMV area, my career. And so I run into people from DC today. You know what I mean? And it's like, oh, I never thought that I would run into you ever again. But you do.
Small industry.
It's a small industry. It's a small world. So always lead with integrity and always feel very confident about what you're doing, because you'll always have to deal with that and to face the repercussions.
I think that's super important. And as a woman, I think it's especially important that you support the other women in your industry. And there's a tendency for everyone to be very competitive, but I think that there's enough space for all of us to be kind, to lift one another up and lean on each other for that advice or learning. And no matter who it is finding those people that are your allies and having enough confidence in yourself to be able to ask the questions, right? There's always going to be somebody that knows something that more or that had more experience than you. It's being able to have the confidence in yourself to be able to ask the questions and know that you're still learning too. And
Absolutely.
I think
and you
show
forever.
up a lot better that way, at the end of the day too.
I think early on, it's important to know you're always learning. And for me, I'm working in growth sectors right now. So certain sectors that I've never worked in before, multifamily, higher ed, healthcare. And there are things that come up that I've just never heard before because I've just never worked in that sector.
Yeah.
And I do not hesitate. What are you talking about? I'm going to let you know early on. I don't know what you're saying. What does that mean? What is that acronym?
Yes.
You know?
Talk about acronyms because they're crazy, and you should never feel bad about asking about an acronym.
And the more you get comfortable asking questions, the more you'll do it. And that's
Yeah.
the best way to be. I mean, I'm asking questions from the beginning of the project, discovery,
Right.
all the way to the end, punch. Why does that look like that?
I mean, maybe I don't know.
What
Literally,
happened?
why?
It seems like you could do that in a better way
Yes.
with higher quality.
Yeah. Until they say, well, that's what you paid for. And then,
Okay.
now you know for next time. So we talked a little bit about community, friendship, and advocacy for both clients and other women in the industry. Is there anything else you want to add to that?
I would just say it's everything. I was extremely shy as a child, very quiet, introvert. Nobody would think that now, but it was crippling for me. I mean, it was a really serious problem. And I say that every teacher, every mentor, every best friend, every person that I encountered that took me under their wing and really helped me develop confidence and develop my personality, it meant everything for me. I wouldn't be who I am today without my community, without my tribe. And I'm one of those people that I still have friends that I had as a 3-year-old.
I love that.
I hold on. I hold on to the people that built me and that inspired me. And they still continue to build me and inspire me. And I hope that I'm doing the same for them.
And we've been able to share some journeys too. And that's been awesome.
Well, that's why we're here.
Lift each other up and
Exactly.
giving space for each other in the community. And I couldn't agree with that more. And basically, the older I get and the farther I get down the road here, is the more that my heart goes out to the younger folks in our industry, particularly the women who are just now getting started and, having babies, doing family, all the things in the midst of all of that is tough. And just know that you're not the only one out there doing it. I don't care if you got kids or not, or family or not.
Of course.
It doesn't matter. There's a lot of expectations around us in general. And somehow, even though we are not rocket scientists or heart surgeons, it feels like it. Right? It feels like we are, because
It does.
we are 24-hour, 7-day-a-week kind of business. And I don't know how it ever got to be that way, but it is. And so here we are.
Well, and everything was due yesterday.
Everything was due yesterday. And it's amazing the kind of urgent questions you get, but it's the reality of what we do. And we have to create those reasonable boundaries for ourselves.
Absolutely.
And find the support system that we need to get through it. I mean, that's just super important.
And to be honest, I remember the day that you and Angela went off on your own. And I don't know, I think I was like flabbergasted. I was like, what does that mean? You know what I mean? That's possible? You can do this on your own, And so it was so important for me to have women in my life like you and Angela, because it really inspired me to know that I had the capability to take a leap like that and do something on my own.
Good.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm glad we inspired you. I mean, we have each other too, and I never would have done this on my own. Angela would have not gone out and done that on her own, so we had each other and support each other all these years. And that's been an amazing experience. And then to be able to get to know people like you who have been friends of ours and of the firm for a very long time. And I think if that's all I walk away from after all of this, is that I was able to be supportive and watch your amazing journey to go out on your own. That's awesome. That's all I could ask for. But beyond the clients that we have serviced and the relationships we built there, is the industry, the friends that we've had a chance to get to know.
Absolutely.
I love it. We spur each other on. And
we're cultivating each other. We're cultivating our clients' business. It's just all.
And we like to poke you too. Like, go.
I know.
I think we were finally like, it's time, Tessa, to go out on your own. You can do it. You're going to be great. It's going to be good. And you did.
Yes.
So it's amazing. Where do you see your work evolving over the next few years?
Oh, what I've done over the last 2 years, it's been a lot of mixed use, right? Mm-hmm. And so what I see is a lot of integrated design, integrated development, and I am loving it. I'm loving amenities in offices, amenities in buildings. So what I'm hoping for my firm and for the community is that we have more integrated communities where we have a lot more placemaking and a lot more thoughtful development, where we are thinking about having people more centrally located and kind of spanning out from that live, work, play atmosphere in these little communities across the board. And so that's really what I'm pushing to get more into.
Yeah.
Those are the types of projects that I'm doing more. I mean, most of my projects have been mixed use. It's rare that I'm doing just office or just industrial or just retail. So that's really exciting to see. And I see that happening on a much, much larger scale. Gasworks,
We do too.
Water Street. Those are the big projects, but there are lots of smaller projects that are happening very similar to that and trying to achieve the same thing.
It's really exciting to see that happen in Gasworks and Water Street and Midtown and all of those great developments. And we both have been fortunate enough to be in on some of those projects and seeing that firsthand come to life. And that's exciting. But I also love the smaller ones too, like you. And I love seeing that everything is becoming much more mixed use. I mean, even in a corporate setting, you know, we for years have been preaching, this doesn't need to be a boring office. This can have a hospitality component. This can have these different types of spaces all combined in one, because let's face it, we don't just live in one type of environment.
Right.
Or work in one type of environment. We like to mix it all together because
I feel
it's
like
a live, work, thrive, right?
ahead of your time with that. I really do, because your design stood out to me. And this is back when I was in construction, you know, because when you're building out things, everything seems to be pretty much the same. But then
cookie cutter.
But then seeing Create & Co.'s work, it's like, oh, this is different.
Yeah.
Oh, this feels good.
Oh, good.
This is comfortable. You know what I mean? Because
you gotta push the client. You gotta push them out of their comfort zone.
We spend so much of our lives in our, or we used to. We used to spend so much of our life in the office. So, you know, bringing a sense of comfort and a sense of diversity in work styles. You guys were rebels back then.
Ooh, yeah, I guess we were. Because it wasn't really common.
No.
And not the norm, for sure. So finally seeing it come full circle, and now basically all offices, all projects, you know, kind of have a mixed use feel to it in itself is exciting. It's good to see it happening finally. And now end users, leadership, executives, they all have a different perspective now. And so the expectation is a lot higher. The spaces have to be much more performance based, and they have this expectation of, well, I should have a little piece of home. I should have a little piece of this and that, because I can go home and do all of this. And I have different settings, and I can do that.
You have to be able to pull people.
Yes.
Why am I going to the office?
Yes.
What's the point? What am I getting? You know?
What am I getting? And it's not necessarily just a food truck or tap at the bar. It's so much more than that. I know some of the conversation is the new amenity is the people. And I think that's a big part of it.
Absolutely.
The more AI we have, the more hybrid spread out work, the less connection we have. And we're losing that. We're going to start losing the humanity of it all.
Oh my gosh.
And that's a real concern for me. Not because I need to push spaces, because we're very diversified. I mean, we work on healthcare. We do a lot of different things. So I'm not out here peddling office space to peddle office space. I want it to be right. I would rather design you a dynamic 5,000 square foot space that works like a hub for you than to sell you on a 10,000 square foot space that you're not going to use.
Absolutely.
And I would much rather be in a place of advocacy on that and understanding, what are you really going to do with it? And then let's create something really cool. So it's exciting. And I love seeing, like we talked about, the smaller mixed use in community. So that retail, residential, all those pieces that are coming together. And I think that brings the people in that micro community together closer, right? Than they were before, because it used to be just the sprawl, right? And you live out here and you shop over there and you eat over here. Now we're getting a lot more of these micro communities that are doing it all in one.
Yeah.
And that's the humanity coming back into it.
It's important. It's critical. You know what I mean? Connection, engagement, wellness. It is
taking care of one another.
It is so important, and it's how we thrive as a species. So I'm all about hybrid and having balance, but I also know that connectivity, human connectivity, is critical for livelihood.
We absolutely do. Yes, well-being. That's a whole. We could have a whole separate podcast on well-being and mental health and all of that. And I think that is really where we are. I mean, we may be we're sitting here, a project manager, interior designer, architecture, but we are creating spaces for people. I mean, at the end of the day, like we talked about, these are
Yes.
spaces for people. This is not just for our own edification. This is not just to create, a building. And we need to make sure that it's something that they can thrive in, that they want to be in, right?
Right.
And connect in, because we have a long road ahead of us of people becoming more and more disconnected, depression, anxiety, all the things are super on the
Loneliness.
rise, loneliness, suicide. These are real things that are
Very
happening
real.
more and more. And as all of us, this industry, create more spaces, people to thrive together, we're helping to bring them together again. We're helping to define these spaces, which is kind of like the wrap up. What is Creative Place mean to you? We talk about all these, kind of pie in the sky concepts.
It is, though,
What is
because
it?
it just still comes back to experience,
Yeah.
to connection, to purpose, right?
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
that's essentially what we're building, we're designing, we're providing, and that's why it's important to make it human-centered and intentional. But that's why roles like ours exist.
Yeah.
And hopefully people uphold similar principles. And I think
Yeah.
it's clicking more and more.
It is. Right. And yes,
Because the demand is there. The demand is there. People
is.
see how they feel in different types of environments.
Agreed.
And so the demand is, I want to feel like this.
Yes.
And I want this type of environment. So I want you guys to produce that. And so there's more of a demand for that now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. They're a lot more educated.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, there are a million solutions out there. And so it's just helping to guide them through that process, right? And for us, we get to create the places, the spaces for them. But I think it also goes back to the process of it too. And so the process, the journey of bringing them through creating that place and building
Absolutely.
those spaces is just as important as the end goal and moving them into those spaces. Because I think the experience starts day one.
Oh, yeah.
With discovery.
I agree.
It should absolutely start there, and the journey takes you all the way through. It doesn't start the day you move into your space. It starts the day you start expressing your dreams, your hopes, and your expectations. And then you and I and our team get to bring the client through that. And that is what's so fulfilling, right? I mean, that's
And
that's
I
how
love to incorporate my client through the process too.
Yes.
I'm really big on design presentations and conceptually so that they
Sure.
can get excited about it
Yes.
and see how their vision is evolving. And then also as we're building, doing tours, because
Yes, you have to keep that excitement up.
you keep the
right?
excitement up because it's hard work. And then
Yes.
it's also people might be displaced.
Yeah.
They might be working in temporary space, or they might be overcrowded, which is why they're going to a new space or expanding or whatever the situation might be.
Yeah.
But it helps keep that excitement and keep them motivated and positive about what's to come and what they're building and where they're going.
Super important. And that's all part of that journey. And I'm glad you touched on that, because I think that's something that the industry doesn't think about necessarily, what's happening to the employees, and they need the communication. What's coming, what's happening.
Absolutely.
That's one of the biggest things that we've seen that can just absolutely ruin culture is the unknown. Just the simple fact of not knowing what is happening. Now, we can't go in and make our clients tell everybody everything that's going on, but the minute they let us, we absolutely jump on board, right? And like you said, take them on tours, show them images, renderings, going on site, because that space between where they are now and where they're going to be could be a year, that could be 2 years, it could be a couple weeks or months.
Yeah, but
it
still.
could be a long time, and they need to be able to sustain themselves while we're over here doing all the busy stuff, right?
I try to integrate myself into their business, I act like I'm an employee. And I try to think about what would I want to see and how would I want to experience this. And even after they move in and then I'm there that week, and if I have to stay longer, I will.
Yeah.
But I sit on site all day, every day for a week.
Oh.
And any problems that come up, I'm right there.
That's
okay,
awesome.
That's going wrong. I got you. I'm calling somebody. They'll be here shortly. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that first week of transition is smooth.
You just hold their hand all the way to the end.
That's the point.
And beyond.
I'm their concierge,
That's a great way to look at it. Yeah.
But not all owner PMs view it that way. That's just how we view it. But I come from a hospitality background. I know that people like to be treated special. They like attention. They like for you to listen to them. And so I've always carried that sense of service with me. And that's just what I try to think of when I am guiding a client through their real estate project.
To your point about the client experience, I know that we are on the same page there. And I appreciate that in you. And I love that you do get so involved in the journey, the project. And I think that really is so much a part of creating a place, creating the space for the client is the experience of it from beginning to end. So
Yeah.
I love that. Thank you so much for being here today. This was a great conversation.
I love spending time with you.
Overdue. You too. I do enjoy it. We have a lot of great conversations, and I think we got to share some important tidbits. Hopefully, that'll inspire some of those in our industry or give a little bit of insight to clients that might be in the mix or thinking
Absolutely.
about getting into a project because
Right.
there's so many resources out there for them, advisors like you, and assembling the team with teams like ours. So it's been great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey friends, if you enjoyed today's episode, please join in the conversation at Created Place Podcast on LinkedIn or Instagram. And don't forget to subscribe. We're so glad you tuned in to Create a Place and look forward to seeing you next time.